Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets with Joe Troyer. This is the show's producer, Eduardo Trinidad. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we'll be giving you part 2 of Joe's panel interview with his mastermind student, Justin. They're going to be diving into the key takeaways of Justin's road to success, growing a 6-figure agency in just 90 days. This episode and part 1 from last week will provide you awesome insights on what it takes for an agency to go from struggling to being profitable. Let's dive in.
How do you handle, I'm curious, your multiple customers in an area? Do you let them know that you have customers in the area?
Absolutely.
Do you leverage that? Do you push on that? Do you play on that? Like,
to a certain extent.
I'm curious to your level of extent there, or how you leverage it, and like what's good for the goose, what's good for the gander. Like, how far do you take it?
Yeah, I'm pretty open with that, because we have more calls than any one contractor can handle in any one area anyway. So I'm like, yeah, you want 200 calls? They're like, no. But I'll definitely let them know, like, yeah, I definitely have somebody else in the area who I send calls to as well. But I still have an overflow of this many, and that makes that conversation easier as far as the upsell. Obviously, I don't want them to know who that person is, and I don't want them talking, And then also, like, if you have a big guy in the area, then you get a small guy. The guy who you couldn't sell on the $2,000 a month package. But hey, look, let me give you $500. Take 8 calls, see how it goes, and you build them up from there. But I don't really pit them against each other, so to speak. But I let them know too. Like, I'm obviously dealing with other companies, and we have more calls than we can handle right now. So as many as you can take, let me know. And I got another company who's taking some too as well. And it's that fear of loss too, because they don't want somebody else getting the business, especially
definitely
when they're getting those install calls and whatnot.
Okay, so in the sale, you'll still use some fear of loss. Let them know that you have a bunch, and they're only getting some. Somebody else is getting them too.
Right.
I think that's cool. Giving them, telling them. Do you want 2,000 calls a month? No, I can't handle 2,000 calls a month. Well, that's why we have to work with multiple people in an area. I think it's like some really good positioning, right? You're asking them first, do you want it? No, I can't take that. Okay, well, great. Like, that's why we have to have, more than one customer. That's cool. I'm interested. So like in a market where you've got a bunch of customers over time, I won't divulge that. Keep that safe for you. We'll divulge enough. In a market that you've been in for a long time, we've been working on for a long time, if a new customer comes on board and complains, do you give them some reference points? Like, because you're already in the market, right? It's not like this is something you're trying. Like, this is the market that you've sold many customers in, right? Do you store that data or use that data to leverage that data, so to speak?
What do you mean?
If a customer's like, oh, I'm not getting anything out of this. Or they're missing a bunch of calls and they're complaining, right? This isn't working for me. Do you use the data from having other customers in the area to help them understand the numbers, or do you leverage that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And most of the time, it's just a conversation. I did make a video case study of one guy who made a bunch of money off a bunch of calls we sent in 1 month. And, I've used that a few times. It has mixed results. But I definitely will let them know, from an authority perspective. Like, hey, look, this is not our first rodeo. You're not my only client in this territory and in this niche. On average, our contractors are getting at least this much. We shoot for this much, and I've seen as much as this. So if you're not getting that, let's analyze why. I can tell you right now, it's because you're not answering the phone all the time. You're giving quotes over the phone. And I'll give them, a little bit of sales, training. Like, hey, look, don't give them a quote. You got to get in front of that person. This is a real business, and once you get in front of them, you have X amount of percentage more chance to close them. And just little tips, because I do listen to all my calls too as well. I still do my call audits for the most part. I'm getting ready to start outsourcing that. And, that's one of the benefits of listening to your own calls, though, is you hear what they're going through. You hear what the customer's telling them, and then what they're telling the customer back. So you can give them advice, maybe even put together a script if they have a horrible admin, be like, hey, listen, I'll help you, give you the...
your booking rate's this is what we see is normal.
Yeah.
You got a problem. Want me to help you fix it?
Tell her to say this, tell her to say that.
Yeah. Cool. Do you ever say, customer calls you in an area that you're in, Justin, I want to cancel, I'm not getting an ROI. Do you ever just spout off to them all right, well, XYZ is getting an 1,100% ROI, so if you want to cancel, that's fine. Do you use the data to say that basically you're an idiot, you have a problem, it's not my problem? Whether you push really hard with it or whether you stay light, do you use that data? Does that make sense? somebody says I'm not getting a return. Well, come on, dude. Like I know ABC, XYZ, and these other companies all in this area we're working with. This is what they're seeing.
Yeah.
Like, do you use that? Do you leverage that?
Absolutely. I'm not combative. It's not my personality, so I don't necessarily go at them like hard. Like, what do you mean? You must suck. How are you in business type thing? It's not really my approach. At the same time, how they come at me is how I'll come back at them for the most part. I also know that, people go through stuff and it could be something that's, not related to business on why they're canceling. It could be something in their personal life. So I try not to burn a bridge. There's only so many contractors in an area and, only so many contractors that you can get a hold of who would buy leads from you. So I try not to burn that bridge, but at the same time, I don't back down. Because I know my product. I know what we're delivering. I listen to the calls. I know you made money off of this and you probably made X amount. So yeah, I do to a certain extent, but just not like in a combative way.
So I agree with that. And when somebody comes at us combative, we put them in their place, and if they don't like it, then it's over. But we don't do it in a combative place. But if they get all crazy on us, it's going to be, look, A, B, C. This is it. If you're not happy with this, right? This is what the typical experience is. Like, sorry, we're not going to be able to do better, right? If you want more than a 900% ROI, we may be able to get you to 1100, but that's going to be it, sir. That doesn't do it, sorry. One thing that we found, obviously, is that the difference in, the roles beyond just getting the phone ringing in all local businesses is very different. It's very severe, the change, right? Like from they miss 90% of their phone calls to like the opposite. They answer everyone, they book everyone, they upsell everyone, right? Like completely different. And so are you coaching them at all at like, I see you're missing 30%, my average is missing maybe 10. I think you're probably, missing about 20% of, the potential appointments that you guys could be having with the current calls. Like, do you go to that level of coaching or not really?
Yeah, a lot of times how I'll introduce that is I'll be like, hey, look, do you need me to, put a certain caller ID or, do you want text messages too as well, besides just email, notifications whenever a call comes through? And that's how I'll start that conversation. So that way I'm kind of letting them know, like, you're missing some calls. And if they still don't get it, then I'll be like, you're missing a lot of calls, and that's where your ROI is going.
Yeah.
So, I'll definitely bring that up, especially when it comes to the missed call thing, because, everybody wants to complain about that more than anything else. And that's their fault. I let them know that. Like, hey, look, you got to answer the phone. Like, if you don't answer the phone, you call a person back 5 minutes later, they might have called somebody else, So, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm coaching there, a little bit on the sales script as far as, like, answering the phones. And then, best practices, too. Like, you have that guy, going back to the quote over the phone. That's one of the biggest problems. They give a quote. It's like, it's only $4,600. Okay, I'm going to call you back. That's what the person's going to say, So I tell them, don't give prices over the phone. Get in front of them, have a conversation.
Yeah. Do you find that most of your HVAC guys offer financing?
I'm surprised at how little do. And I've brought it up to a few of them. I'm like, hey, look, that's another revenue stream. Or at least something of value I can offer them to keep them on longer if I don't get it, cut back from that, whatever it is. But yeah, most of them don't, and it's surprising, because it is a high ticket.
I mean, what do you expect when you tell a customer over the phone, give me $4,600? Like, are you crazy? Can we talk about KPIs for a second? When you're prospecting, I mean, what's your goal for dials? What's your goal for sets? What's your any of those numbers? Like what's your focus?
I don't focus too much on the dials, because I don't need that like discipline to get on the phone.
I know. I see you making 300 dials in a day, bragging in Slack.
But I know that I have to talk to enough people to where I have enough quality conversations, and I'm building that pipeline. So. Like I'm an old school B2B type guy, 300 calls a day is the minimum. So, and that's a little bit extreme, but I know that, I need to make like 100 calls a day or, I'm not it's not like a set number, like I have to hit 100, but I know that if I don't have a certain amount of quality conversation, if I don't get a certain amount of, consults in, if I don't get a certain amount of contracts out or, things of that nature, that I know that I'm going to falter from where I need to be on my pace.
For sure. So, any kind of KPIs that like you watch in there at all? Like if I don't do X in a week versus a day, like anything that you start to see like you're skidding or you're starting to coast or you're going backwards? Like,
If I go a
is there
day-
any KPIs, even just not dials or consults or closes? What are the KPIs that you see in your business that like, oh shit, like I got to step it up? It's your warning sign. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, like, if I go a day without doing a consult, then I feel like I didn't do anything, even if I didn't make a bunch of calls or build a little pipeline. So I would definitely say, quality consults is the main thing. Like if I'm having at least one quality consult per day, and I'm trying to have 5, 6, 7, and then still following up with some people that I maybe had one with before, and they're kind of on the fence. So the main KPI would be always having at least a couple good, solid conversations every single day.
Awesome. What's your big fucking goal?
My big goal, 50K, and actual residual. Like solid contracts. Not going up and down, and being consistent with it.
Awesome.
50K for this quarter.
Yeah, buddy. So, what's next for you? What's on the horizon? We talked about the money side of it, right? But what are the things that you're focused on that are going to help you get there? What are the next steps? What are the things you're really zoning in on?
Analytics. I'm not nearly as on point with my analytics and my data, and staying on top of calls and having those KPIs. I do it more off of habit and routine, and that's not duplicatable and it's not sustainable either too.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one of my goals, is to get a much tighter grip on my business, and then also start building assets, man. That's a sort of a pride thing, and it's also a long-term hedge, and it's also, something that it makes you feel more like a business owner, versus just like, doing sales and doing sales and doing sales. So for me, that's an important thing, is to start having assets that, something I can be proud of, that, is generating revenue and is, the other side of the business too.
I get it. Let me, I'll push back a little bit though. You already have assets. Every deal that you sign is an asset.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't have to deal with those headaches. At some point, if I were you, would I start building assets? 100%. But I think it's the next level, right? I think you need to level up a couple of more times before you start worrying about it. And the reason I say that is because it is a cash-sucking monster, right? It's expensive. We were talking about your PPC campaign. You want to tell everybody how much money you dumped in your PPC campaign that went right out the window? Right? It's fucking expensive, right? And the thing is that you can't shut it off. You can't like shortcut it. You have to be willing to make the investment for a certain amount of time. That's all. Right? It's like, when you run into an AdWords campaign, it's like 6 months or like consistency, losing, or don't even try. Don't bother. And so that's, I think you got to stack the cash and be ready for it. And if you do it too prematurely, you'll do it for 2 months, realize how much money you lost, and then you're like, see ya. And then you didn't get anything out of it. You didn't learn anything. You didn't end up with anything. You just blew a whole lot of money and time. So that would be my words of wisdom. By all means, I think you should get there. And I think that is something that you should focus on. Just be ready for it, because it's a whole nother beast, right?
Yeah.
You're getting through sales and learning sales. Like, you came into the mastermind doing well, but how long were you in sales before that, right?
Wow.
So how much fulfillment have you done too?
In mastermind?
Yeah, no, just in general.
Never.
Yeah, so it's a whole nother learning curve, right? You've mastered 50% of your business, and you're talking about, I'm going to double, I'm going to triple, I'm going to quadruple my sales in the next quarter, but I'm also going to go tackle this other side of the business that I don't know, right? Like that, just be careful. If I were you, I would wait a quarter.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the main benefits of having the mastermind like this, because yesterday when we talked about it, it was 20K, and then you were like, well, you need at least 30K, to start doing assets. Well, I was like, well, my goal needs to be 50K then, so that way I know I'm not going to be great at it in the beginning. I am going to lose money, so that's why, the main benefit there.
Definitely, 100%. Any other key things that are really on your radar for the next quarter? Obviously, big goal for the next quarter, 50K, but any other positions?
Yeah, hiring, outsourcing. I've always been the person who's do it yourself. I can do it the best. And, you think about yourself and you're like, yeah, I could work 18-hour days for the next 2 years and make it and, be good. And then you start doing it and you start burning out and you realize that it's not meant to be like that. Like in business, to grow, you have to bring on people. You have to have a team. So I definitely going to start outsourcing. I want to hire. I already just hired my first VA, and she's doing like a lot of the admin tasks for me. And I'm learning how to really manage that and make the most of that. And I want to bring on an SDR and bring on a salesperson, even if it's just to have that interaction, and then also to teach it back to somebody else, because that makes you better too as well. You realize how much you do know, and also how much you don't know, and what you need to be focusing on too as well.
One tip there, your SDRs should end up being your closers. Don't hire a closer from somewhere else. Hire an SDR. They do a good job being the SDR. They want to get into closing. Teach them the closing. If they suck, guess what? They go back to being an SDR and still make $100+ grand a year. Right? If you hire a closer, you think about how much money could be gone like this if you filled up their calendar. They didn't close any deals. Right? So we always go from SDR and then try to train into closer. Because if they get that conversation and they can start building rapport on the front end, the script is getting so much to the point where it doesn't need to be a closer in a way, right? And especially with somebody like you that's been there, that's done it, being able to push back into it, right? You definitely don't need a quote unquote closer.
Gotcha.
So I would focus on hiring the SDRs and really getting them humming, and then give both of them a shot at closing some deals and see how they do.
Gotcha. Super salesman.
Yeah.
25 consults a day.
Thanks for tuning in and showing me the nuggets. If you've been enjoying the podcast and find our content helpful, please visit our Apple Podcast page, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a review. Joe and the whole team have been working hard to bring more value to the show. Your feedback will go a long way in helping us make the show better and reach a wider audience.